All right, hey guys, welcome back. Had a 2 week layoff there from the Commish pick videos. Sorry about that, but we're back, and we'll ride this out for the rest of the year, hopefully. Um, Been an interesting few weeks since we last spoke. I just noticed the Christmas decorations behind me. Anyways, yeah, a lot of interesting matchups we've had in the last few weeks. A lot of upsets, keeping some teams in it that I think probably thought they would be out of it by now. But we have some pivotal matchups. I think this week is really, really important as far as playoff seeding, looking at those third and fourth playoff spots. I think, Brady's third dynasty seems to have wrapped up that top spot at this point. Maybe Eves can make a run at it, but to me, those two are locked in as playoff teams, barring something extreme. Um, Although even that, I think Brady's third dynasty is getting one of those four spots. But as far as everyone else just trying to get into the playoffs, I think this week is key. So let's go ahead and take a look at what our matchups are this week. Week 11. So I'll start off with Bills Mafia sitting at 5-5 versus the Washington Fantasy Football Team, also at 5-5. Two teams that I thought would be well within the playoff hunt at this point, still in the hunt, but definitely on the cusp. I don't think I expected either of these teams to be sitting at 500 at this point in the season. Obviously, the Washington Fantasy Football Team dealing with injuries, Bills Mafia dealing with incredible inconsistency. This matchup has huge implications for playoffs. I think the loser of this matchup is going to have a difficult time squeaking in. I do think Bills Mafia has a better shot, even with a loss, at getting into the playoffs than the Washington Fantasy Football Team, but this one is going to hurt whoever loses it. Looking at the matchup, I think Bills Mafia has the advantage at every position group except tight end in this matchup. That hasn't mattered in the past few weeks. I think that's been a fact in the past few weeks matchups as well. And it hasn't mattered. Bills Mafia, I've been blown out a few times in the past few weeks. So it's all the consistency game from my top players. Looking at Adam, his chances likely lie on the back of Alvin Kamara and a monster Aaron Rodgers game. I think without these two guys just absolutely going off, I think this one is probably not going to be super close. Just a guess. Again, it's hard to predict my team. But based on that, I think Commish pick, we're going to go with Bills Mafia again this week. I mean, this picking myself is killing my overall record, but I feel good about it. I think in the ones I've had to win, I've been able to win this year. So hopefully that'll continue. And at some point, like, my team has got to figure it out. In years past, I mean, historically, these are not super inconsistent players. So I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around why this year I seem to have a team full of players that can't figure it out. So anyways, Bills Mafia in the first matchup. Next matchup, Cup to Canada versus Chota. Cup to Canada sitting at 6-4, Chota 4-6. Big win for Chota last week over Bills Mafia. Can Chota make a surprising run to the fourth seed? 2 weeks ago, that would have been a laughable statement, but here we are, sitting at 4-6. We're going to have one of those teams I mentioned right before are going to be sitting at 5-6. So Chota, with an upset win over Cup to Canada here, could be tied up with one of those, Bills Mafia or Washington Fantasy Football Team. So Chota's got to pull the upset this week, though. I think 4-7 probably is going to knock him out, just given his schedule coming up. So got to get that upset this week. For Cup to Canada, is Mahomes really back? I mean, what a roller coaster here. We've gone from, best ever to mediocre to, well, maybe he's still okay to, now he's again the best quarterback ever. So, if Mahomes is back, if we're talking a top one, top two quarterback, Eves is looking like the odds-on favorite for the championship, in my opinion. I mean, this team is stacked, top to bottom. This is very clearly a win now team, but highly competitive to win that championship. Looking at Choda's matchup, I mean, Stephon Diggs finally had his big breakout game last week. Look for that to continue. Choda needs more from DK Metcalf and Darren Waller to be truly competitive. Those three are, like, to me, kind of the key to this team. DK obviously dealing with a backup quarterback, and then Russ not looking like he's fully healthy last week. Hopefully he can get that figured out. And then Darren Waller, this guy week one had something like 20 targets and all these catches. And since then, I mean, he's been pretty quiet. So something's got to give there. He has a, history with Carr. There's no reason why he should be quiet. He's getting double teamed a lot. And I think that'll continue, but matchup to matchup, I think he's going to have big weeks. I think this matchup is going to be competitive through Monday night. I think Choda's going to pull an upset in this one. I think the key is that Monday night Saquon game. I think Saquon's going to go off. I think it's going to be kind of surprising whether or not he has a ton of yards, but I think he's going to get quite a couple touchdowns or so. I'm picking Choda. I'm sure Eves will be happy about that, reverse Commish curse or whatever. But I mean, I think Choda's going to get the upset. Just the way this league is going this year, I think this is going to be a tight run to the 3rd and 4th seed, and I think we're going to get someone surprising squeaking in there. So why not Choda? So we'll see. All right, next matchup, Brady's third dynasty, 8-2 versus Ben, 4-6. Two teams going in opposite directions here. Brady's third dynasty just continues to roll through the regular season. Had some, adversity, but just continues to chug right along. 8-2. I mean, like Tim said, I think 8 wins gets you in. So Brady's third dynasty likely is in the playoffs at this point. Ben continues to have struggles. However, Christian McCaffrey's back. I mean, last week he looked good. They're already giving him a huge share of the offense. Ben's team is completely different with McCaffrey in the lineup, obviously. And with McCaffrey, you always have a chance to win. The guy can get you 30 points. He can be an extra running back in your backfield. For Ben, the time to start winning is now. Sitting at 4-6, he's in the same spot as Choda here. Knocking off Brady's third dynasty would be huge. Show that, you can beat any team in this league. And again, I'm going with the upset here. I think Ben's going to do it. I think combination of McCaffrey and a tasty matchup and George Kittle finally looking kind of back to his normal dominant self. I think it's going to put Ben over the top this week and keep him in the playoff hunt. A lot of these predictions are just kind of, for me, how the league seems to be going and what is happening in these sorts of matchups. I think Ben's going to be sitting at 5-6 and right there on the cusp. All right, last matchup, Trust the Process at 5-5 versus Half Chubb at 3-7. This is the closest matchup in terms of projections this week, but I think it's going to be a blowout by the week's end. Looking at Tim's team, I mean, Jonathan Taylor's a problem. He's going to be a problem for this league for the next decade. CD Lamb's already looking dominant. There's another 9 years of dominance for Tim. DeAndre Swift is the entire Detroit offense. If Kyler's healthy, this team can make waves this year. I've said it over and over, like, we're in for it, boys. Like, Tim's team is absolutely stacked. So for the future. So, if you're looking to win a championship, you might want to do it sooner rather than later. Looking at John's team, John has some weapons on his team that can win you a week, but some tough matchups this week. I think that's a difficult prospect against Trust the Process, who just looks awesome. Probably some of the hottest players in the league all on his team. So commissioner pick, Trust the Process. Like I said before, I don't think this one's going to be super close. There might be a little subtle commissioner curse vibes on this one, hoping to, get that reverse psychology commissioner curse, get Tim to get the loss. But I do think Tim's going to get the win this week and go to 6-5 and still be right in the playoff hunt. All right, switching over to future focus. We're going to switch to wide receivers, a guy that I really like as an Ohio State fan, Garrett Wilson. 6 foot, 188-pound wide receiver from Ohio State. He's coming off a huge game against Purdue last week. 10 catches, 126 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. He also had a 51-yard rushing touchdown. Kid's electric. Just looking at Ohio State when he's in the lineup, it's completely a different team. He makes CJ Stroud look like a Heisman candidate at quarterback, which is saying something because I don't think he's that good. But looking at the good for Garrett Wilson, ball tracking, I think is the biggest one. He has a very similar playing style as Devontae Smith. I don't know. I don't know if he's in the same. Devontae Smith is obviously breaking out recently, so it's hard to compare the two. But if anything, Garrett Wilson, I think, has a more NFL-ready body than Devontae Smith coming out of college. Garrett Wilson has phenomenal burst. He's smart off the release. He absolutely dominates defenders through his break and then sinks hard when he cuts, and then has strong acceleration after the break. Great route runner. Think, a Stephon Diggs, someone, one of those slot receivers. And he plays in the slot quite a bit as well at Ohio State. He attacks the football in the air and shows extremely reliable hands. This is obviously something that's always a struggle with receivers coming out of college. So he seems to have already established himself as a great hands guy. And then he's not easy to take down as a runner either. He's not afraid to, lay the hit, get the extra yard. As far as things that he needs to work on, he lets defenders get their hands on him too frequently. I think this slows him down a lot of times out of his breaks, and kind of neutralizes some of those good routes that he's able to run. He also lacks kind of a top gear that some of the recent draft picks have. I mentioned he has phenomenal burst, which is that initial off the line speed, but his top gear speed when he's at full run is not necessarily as fast as you would expect. He's not slow by any means, but he's not going to win many matchups on speed alone. He really relies on those routes. So that's Garrett Wilson. That's it for me this week. Just a reminder, as of today, we have 10 days until the trade deadline. So make sure you make any moves you want to make, so you don't have any regrets going into the off season or to the playoffs and our draft and expansion. So everybody have a great week, and we will see you next week. Best of luck.